Devil May Cry 2 started development before the first title reached store shelves worldwide. It's definitely strange to greenlight a sequel before sales are really reported in, but Capcom had faith in Devil May Cry as a brand. That's some good foresight there, with the future entries being some of the best action titles. However, DMC2 wasn't so lucky. Right off the cuff, there's a couple of red flags here, right? The first red flag is Hideki Kamiya, and by connection, his entire team did not know this title was being developed and was never brought on to the project later on. Which is crazy because, they developed the first Devil May Cry. You'd think you'd want their input at least. The second red flag, DMC2's dev team was a team which had only worked on arcade titles before this game, so they didn't have any experience with 3D action titles, which resulted in a production severely behind schedule. And the third red flag, and probably the most damning one, the original director for this project is completely unknown. That itself is telling. When looking into this, you'll find some different rumors on who this may be, but frankly, none of that is really important. The only thing that really matters is that it was a fresh new face that they had directing and they messed up bad. After months of development, Capcom was not happy with the product that was created, so they brought on Hideaki Itsuno to salvage the rest of this game. Itsuno had just finished work on Capcom vs SNK 2, and he started work on the conceiving steps of a brand new RPG. But since he appeared to be idle, his boss ordered him to work on Devil May Cry 2. Itsuno was asked to reorganize this project in a more supplementary role. He would end up being listed as the only director in the final version of this game. For a fact, flat out, Itsuno is the reason why people would consider this game a success at all. With 6 months left on the deadline when Itsuno took over, he accomplished this request, but was dissatisfied with the level of involvement he had with the final product's quality. But well, I guess a lot of players would agree with that as well. This game has a history of being labeled the worst Devil May Cry in the series, with critics and players alike having similar feelings. Basically, it boils down to the game feeling so oblivious, so disinterested to the original title's vision, almost like it was done on purpose. From the original, where mastery of the game's systems was a must, to a game that's so easy you don't even have to engage with the systems it brings forward. Okay, now I'm not here just to dog on this game, though I do agree this is the low point in the series. It does have its merits, even if those are outweighed by the bad. To start off with, this game has two playable protagonists, with their own separate campaigns. There's Dante, the one we know and love, and for some reason he really got into coin flipping in between the two titles, and then there's Lucia, who gets buried with the rest of this game's reputation. On the original PS2 title, each had their own disc as well. As a kid, my first experience with this game was after my brother got it from some used game store. It only had the Lucia disc, and for a while our stupid kid brains was so confused. Like, why can't I play as Dante? It wasn't until later when we learned that we were missing a disc. Sad times. Nowadays, Dante's the campaign I play the most whenever I become a bit of a masochist and I revisit this title. Yes, if it's part of a series I love, I really play games that are in it that I don't really like. Seeing that he is the main character of the series, I guess we should start with the Dante campaign, right? So the plot begins at a museum with the Sparta backstory being told you to set the scene. Lucia is there about to take a coin when she gets jumped by a couple of demons. Dante joins in on the action and gets the coin. He then gives it to her. They part ways, with her given the worst instructions on where to meet. Like, seriously, look at that blade to map ratio. The location is vague at best. Like, there's a lot of landmass to cover there. The game then jumps to this clock tower. Dante is his cool self aura farming at the top. After seeing his destination, he jumps off to begin the game. Just look at that superhero landing. So cool he transcends the series and makes an appearance in SMT3 Nocturne. Right off the bat, this game gives off a good impression. Movement in this game feels kinda cool. The first thing I noticed way back in the day, and I still love, is that you start with double jump. There's also this dodge roll button, and if done while holding the stick towards the wall, you run on the wall. That's super cool. Basically useless for in-game, but like, you can run on the wall, then jump in the air, and then start doing air combos or a helm splitter, or shoot in the air while you slowly descend. On top of that, the gunplay is kinda cool. There's some neat tricks you can do with directional input. There's something here I can see someone loving. The acrobatics feel special and it gives you a very strong start. It was a smart choice to start the player in an empty space so you could experiment with this new playstyle. However, something feels off though. The way Dante swings his sword feels slow, and the stinger, what did they do to you, my boy? It just feels gross. There's a short honeymoon phase here. Like the beginning of a toxic relationship, you feel something's off, and it only gets confirmed once you start actual combat. Combat feels sluggish with minimum engagement needed. You can either A, use your slow moving sword and perform combos, or B, use your guns to melt their HP. And there's not much in between that. I mean, that's a little disingenuous. There is a little bit of depth with the sword combat. You see, in DMC 1 they had the pause combos. If you stop your input briefly in the middle of a combo, then continue your input, your combo would continue into a completely different set. It feels natural and easy to self-discover without any extra help. In DMC 2, on the other hand, combos are altered by moving the left stick. I on the regular would do a different sword movement than the regular combo without knowing what I did. It's super easy to move the stick without noticing. I just wish it told you somewhere in-game. Not that the pause combo in DMC 1 is taught to you either, but it does feel easier to naturally learn this tech over time. Also, to be fair, the instruction manual does mention this info, it's just not everybody has access to that manual, you know? Moving along as we continue, Dante reaches the house he spotted earlier, and it explodes! Luckily, no one got hurt. Lucia and her mother Mattia give Dante the lowdown and why he was invited here to begin with. Arius, an international businessman and a Heihachi lookalike who uses demonic power, is looking to collect these mythological artifacts known as the Arcana, one of them being the coin we collected earlier, to release Argisax and become an all-powerful immortal. As payment, Mattia offers to tell Dante a bedtime story all about his daddy. Dante, who once again recently really got into coin flipping after watching The Dark Knight, decides to flip his coin to see if he'll help. Naturally, because we need a game to play here, it lands on heads, so Dante does accept the mission. He continues forward into the catacombs. While you're here, you'll notice these floating obelisks that glow red, and just like when you defeat enemies, red orbs will drop. In DMC 1, you had to use these red orbs to purchase new abilities, so throughout the game you had this kind of progression scale, right? In DMC 2, there is no such thing. All of the abilities you have at the beginning of the game are the same abilities you have at the end of the game. Red orbs are used to buy basically 3 different things. Either A, blue orbs, which will increase your HP, purple orbs, which will increase your double trigger gauge, or you can purchase upgrades to your weapons. That's right, in this game you level up your weapons and you use red orbs to do that. Also, if you're a little bit more on the inquisitive side, you can accidentally enter these secret missions. Just like in Devil May Cry 1, you have these secret missions in which you do an objective and it will give you a fragment of a blue orb, which will help you again increase your HP. What makes it different here though is instead of it being different missions based on what room you have different objectives. In this one, they just call them secret rooms. Each time you enter these rooms, it's always the same. They're all just multi-wave fights. Some of these rooms will give you a boss fight, but they're always a boss fight that you fought within the main game. It's also in these catacombs when you get introduced to a brand new mechanic that, in theory, was really cool, but execution kinda lacked. The double trigger in this game, they added a whole new medallion system. Basically, as you explore these levels, you'll get different items that you can add to your medallion that gives your double trigger different aspects. Like you'll give yourself the ability to fly, or the ability to run super fast, or modifiers that will add elemental damage to your combos. There's also a really cool secret feature that the double trigger has in this game that no other game has, and it's called the margin double trigger. The only way to activate this is to go into double trigger mode while your HP is red. This is actually hard to do because the game is stupidly easy and it's really hard to get your HP that low. It's a super jacked version of double trigger with a whole different moveset that does way more damage, and it's super cool if you can get to it. You might see it more if you continue to play after you beat the game once and you unlock the future difficulties. You will have more of a challenge and therefore you might actually see it more often, but on your normal playthrough, good luck. Dante leaves the catacombs and he's finally able to breathe some fresh air. Look at that. And we have our very first boss fight this mission. Boss fights in this game aren't really too intensive. They're very similar to regular enemies, just more spongy. So really, the best way to handle them is to stay away and shoot at them until their HP melts away and dies. And if you want to interact with them more, you can try to swing at them with your sword. More often than not though, they'll have an ability to knock you away anyways, so most of the time, you are better off just standing off in the distance shooting them down. It's not only the boring option, it's also the option that's most incentivized. But if you like to have a little bit of fun in your game, I do recommend jumping in with a little swing here or there, right? It's a game, you're not supposed to just be speedrunning this, you're trying to have fun here. You just have to make your own fun out of it because the challenge isn't gonna be there for you. The next mission is actually when you get the pendant upgrade that allows you to run faster, which is a must to actually get through this segment, and you can take on the next boss. Just to give a little bit of my personal twinge here, this boss is probably my second least favorite boss fight in all of Devil May Cry 2. We will meet my least favorite sooner or later, don't you worry, but this one is my second least. The key here is to attack and destroy one of the tentacles, leaving it then open to attack. You can damage it, and then eventually it blows you away, and it's covering itself with poison, so you have to destroy the leg again, so then it's weakened, so you can attack it, and it's just an endless cycle. But I always feel like I can't do enough damage to get this boss done with fast enough. It just takes too long. Part of the problem here might be the lock-on system or the way Dante interacts with the boss when he tries to combo it. Either way, it just feels wrong, and it just... oof. From there, Dante steals this motorcycle and drives straight to the big ol' city, the Big Apple itself. Not New York, but whatever they call this city. The first thing you do here is fight a pair of annoying wolves. You beat them and then they tease what is supposed to be your rival fight in this game. Unfortunately, he never leaves a mark like some of the greats. This mission is also when we interact with the stupidest and somehow the coolest concept I could think of. Demonic military equipment. That's right, you're fighting demon tanks. And just like a tank, it takes 1,000,000 hits to take one down. And you have 3 of them you have to take down. And then here comes the next big challenger, the demonic helicopter. You have a short platforming segment here where you're trying to escape the helicopter. You're going into a building, it's on fire, you have to climb, and then you have to climb multiple skyscrapers, and I think that's kind of cool to show the scale of the city. It's a neat idea. Execution's a little bit wanting, but the idea was there, But then you get to the boss encounter. Unfortunately, this is a helicopter, and that means you can only shoot at it to take it down. Good luck trying to hit at it with your sword. It is possible technically, it's just not advised. So that means most of this encounter, if you call it a boss fight or anything, is just you standing around and shooting it while dodging a missile every once in a while. Look at this. Peak game design, am I right? The next mission is just a boss in itself, and it really is the trailer shot of boss fights. You have this skyscraper that turns into a demon. Super cool idea. It's a big spectacle boss fight. 2 phases. The first phase, he's this gigantic being shooting energy blast at you. You have to dodge and shoot. And the second phase is just his floating head shooting at you. Not the most exciting second phase, honestly. But this is a cool spectacle of a boss fight. Up next, this oil rig. Arius just landed down on his helicopter and we're in hot pursuit. I don't know how Dante got here. And honestly, I don't think the game really cares. And in this mission, we get a brand new sword. The thing you'll notice about the swords in this game is that they all do the exact same combo. There is no difference. The only thing you'll notice, some have better reach and some do more damage, but honestly, there's not much of a difference in actual gameplay in any regard. What I would honestly recommend is picking the sword you like the most and leveling it up, and now that one's max. That being said, the sword you start with, the Rebellion, this is the first game that the Rebellion shows up in, and this is Dante's canonical main sword he uses. In Devil May Cry 1, he uses the Force Edge, which is his father's Sparta sword, right? The Rebellion is Dante's, and from this game onwards, we will see Dante using the Rebellion as his main sword. Considering how rightfully hated this game is, it does do a couple firsts for the franchise. We'll talk about those as they become relevant though. In the next mission, Dante finally catches up with Aureus, his main target, right? Yeah, Aureus kinda doesn't care. He just says maybe another time, summons a demon, and then leaves. Again, this is one of those bosses that keep knocking you away, which makes close quarter combat more annoying than not, and it makes being that long distance shooting a more viable option to take him down, and that's just boring. In the next mission, the oil refinery is about to explode and you have 12 minutes to escape. Yeah, it only takes like 4 minutes, but really, 12 minutes, can you make it out alive? Surprisingly, extremely easy. I just realized, is it that Dante was in the city, he took this underground train track to the oil refinery? Is that how he got here? Because at the end of the mission, he's back in the city and he takes his motorcycle and goes off to his next mission. So like, is that really what happened? Was I just dumb? Oh, and also, this level has the stupidest blue orb fragment you have to collect. Because you have these damn birds that keep getting in the way and they endlessly spawn, and the orb is on top of this like very thin like pipe structure thing you have to walk around. It's super annoying and super easy to fall down, and it sucks because you have this timer, and if you lose the timer, you lose the mission, right? Like, I don't need that kind of pressure here. You get me? Boom, we're in the next mission, and we're in some kind of, I don't know, Stonehenge-looking area. You attack these orbs on the side to unlock the door, to attack that orb, to then open a giant door that you have to enter to finish the mission, right? Easy, simple. Wrong. Here comes your next boss fight. It's Mothra! And just like the helicopter boss, for some stupid reason, they give us a boss that only flies, which makes it really hard to hit with your sword, and means you can only shoot it down. And that's it. It's super boring. You're just standing away from it while you shoot it down, just like the helicopter. What makes this a little different, though, is once you defeat it, it then shoots some caterpillar spawn that you have to get rid of before you're finished with the encounter. And honestly, what I do to kind of speed this along is these little caterpillars will eat you, right? And then you burst out of them and that kills one, instead of draining down its health slowly, right? So I will purposely get eaten to move along, you know? It's a weird choice, but it gets me through it. Unfortunately, this tactic doesn't work on the higher difficulties just because the amount of HP it drains on you. So this is mostly a normal exclusive speedrunning technique, you know? That's right, speedrunning technique. Now we go back into another catacomb space. This level has a couple of traps you have to deal with, a couple of platforming segments, a couple of secret weapons to find, and your first fight with Mr. Spooky Skeleton Guy. For weapons, he uses a very long sword and his 2 dogs. These are the same 2 dogs you fought way earlier when you entered the city for the first time. And I mentioned it before, but I'm gonna say it again. This guy is your best attempt of a rival fight in this game. He has no personality. He has no real, like, direct comparison to the main character, to Dante, right? But he is that representative. You do fight him one more time after this. He is meant to be that foreboding boss fight that is Dante's equal. Except he isn't. Nello Angelo, you are not. The next mission has this really annoying, like, sphere section when you're, like, inside of a sphere, right? And it's constantly turning, and you have to destroy these, like, floating diamonds in order to continue, but they're always moving and you have to jump in the air and hit them. Your bullets can't do it. You have to manually hit them with your sword, and it's just kind of awkward, you know? It's not a fun part. But this level's really short because after this, it's basically straight to another boss fight. But first, Dante bumps into Lucia. It looks like you both were going for the same Arcana at the same time. I don't know why you didn't, like, divide and conquer, but whatever. And she gives Dante the Arcana and says, I need to take care of something, so I'm gonna go that way, and she just leaves. One thing to point out, though, is that she does seem a little bit more melancholic than she does normally. Which is hard to tell because this game, everybody seems kind of melancholic. And after she leaves, we have the boss fight, and well, just watch this gameplay. gaming. The very next cutscene, right outside of this dungeon, Mate is there waiting. Like, she didn't even need Dante's help, did she? Jeez. She tells Dante that Lucia went to face Arius by herself, then gives Dante all the Arcana and says, hey, can you go save Lucia? Why would you bring the Arcana directly to Arius? Like, that's not the smart move there, but hey, Dante flips a coin and it lands on heads, so he does it. And boy oh boy does he, because the next mission, we're already in Arius' office. Lucia's being held up captive, and Dante's there with all the Arcana, easy for Arius to take. And after he takes them, comes a very easy boss. All he does is teleport around the room while summoning ads for you to deal with. And honestly, all you really need to do is ignore the ads and go straight for him. Because if you take down an enemy, he's just gonna summon another one in its place. Ignore them, go straight for him, and he's down in no time. Before Dante could do the finishing blow, Arius goes nuclear and explodes his office, making Dante have to rush to save Lucia and escape. In the next cutscene, Lucia explains what happened, and basically, she isn't human like she thought she was. She's actually a creature or a demon created by Arius. Arius' ritual is well underway. The demonic world of hell is slowly encroaching on the human world. They have until the sun is completely eclipsed to resolve this issue. Luckily, we have like 4-ish missions left to the end of the game, so we'll make it. This mission's all about you running around in an environment you've already been through, but it's been like warped, demonically changed, right? And the goal is to find these orbs, hit them up until you're ready to move on to the next. There's 5 in total. Some of them are in really annoying places like here where they're up high and you just have to like jump up and do a helm splitter over and over and over again and get them down. This is also where I learned something really cool. By default, Dante actually locks on to all the enemies around him. This is not like any other Devil May Cry game. In those games, you have to hold on to a lock-on button. In this one, you auto-lock. But if you hold on to the R2 button, Dante will ignore the lock-on. This is incredibly useful for you to deal with your objective. Otherwise, you have to empty out the entire room of all of its enemies before you can continue on. It's less of a problem and more of a kind of annoying thing to deal with, you know? Once we get to the end, we get a surprise visit, a friend from the past. That's right, it's Phantom. I don't know why Phantom's here. I don't even know how Phantom got here, because we killed him last time. But you know what? We don't even talk. He's just here, and we kill him, and we move on. I think there's a lore thing mentioned somewhere in many ethos of Devil May Cry that hell isn't necessarily a linear time stream, and because of that, even though Phantom is dead at this point, Phantom could also be here at this time because hell makes no sense. I don't really care. This never happens in any other Devil May Cry game, so honestly, like the rest of this game, it kinda gets forgotten anyways. The next mission takes place in this very same room, and honestly, it's just a time attack. You basically have to finish off all these enemies before the time runs out. You do that and you can move on. Now, this mission is really the last mission of the game. After this, it's just boss fight and boss fight. So this is indeed the last actual mission of the game. This mission really does boil down to grab object, go back, grab object, go back. But during this mission, we do fight our residential skeleton man for one last time. Just as quickly as he came, he's now gone. But there's one more boss to this mission, and this guy is, in my humble opinion, probably the worst boss fight in all of Devil May Cry I've ever had to deal with. And I'm including the reboot DMC. I know, I'm being hyperbolic here. All you really have to do is stand and shoot and dodge his projectiles that he's shooting at you. But something about this boss just drives me up a wall. And I have zero enjoyment fighting this guy, no matter what difficulty I'm on, no matter what kind of tools I'm using. I've never had fun with this encounter. And on top of that, I have a very vivid memory of my first time trying to get that platinum way back on the PS3, and I got stonewalled playing Dante Must Die mode, being stuck on this boss, because he just did so much damage. Which is weird to say for Devil May Cry 2, but it was really hard. It was the only challenge to the entire game was that one boss, but it was such an infuriating challenge. But a lot of this seems to be more biased than otherwise, I can admit that. So that leaves me to ask you guys, What is your least favorite boss fight in all of Devil May Cry? Not just 1 and 2, I mean every single game in the series. What's your least favorite boss? Drop that in the comments, I'd like to know. Up next is a refight with Aureus. The ritual is complete, and now Aureus is an all-powerful immortal. Except Dante swapped the coin. That's right, that coin he's been flipping the entire game, he swapped that with the Arcana coin from the beginning of the game. So Aureus never even had all the Arcana.
A false coin for a false god.
I'm not entirely sure what happened here on the performance side. Dante also has a couple cool one-liners here, I'm not gonna lie. But the fight itself is a repeat of last time, except I guess more challenging. It's really hard to tell on normal. I guess on hard difficulties it does make a difference, but it's really hard to tell.
King? Yeah. Here's your crown.
All is saved, crisis averted. Lucia's not done having existential crisis. She thinks she deserves to die because she was made by Aureus, therefore she's part demon. And Dante's like, no, devils never cry. And she's crying. It's a whole moment there, I guess. But uh-oh, a giant hole to hell opens up. Who's gonna enter? Dante flips the coin, heads he goes in, tails Lucia goes in. It lands on heads and Dante enters hell. Man, it's been landing on heads a lot this game, huh? But now time for the final boss of the game, Argisax the Chaos, and he is a blob? Yeah, so it's like a blob with multiple heads, each head representing a previous boss Dante's fought. Also Griffin from Devil May Cry 1 for some reason. Each one shares its own portion of the HP pool. You just kinda shoot it down until that portion's done and you move on to the next. And when I say shoot it down, I mean, look at this. I mean, this just feels like cheating. But that's not it. There's one more phase. We now have to fight the Despair embodied. And this is, and I do mean this with all of my gusto, the best boss fight in Devil May Cry 2. Again, on normal it's not too hard. On other difficulties it does get better. But this is the first boss, even on normal, that you have to use some kind of tactic to actually beat. It's a really nice change of pace, honestly. And I'll be real, human-sized bosses are always better than giant monster bosses. So it has that going for it as well. Tactics-wise, what have you, really is, you just react to it. It moves and teleports around the stage, it does all sorts of different attacks, and you just have to react to those attacks and then attack them back. God, it's good to experience something like this in Devil May Cry 2, for sure. There is some cool details about it, like it does change genders between male and female shapes. It has a cool, like, ambiguous nature about it. It truly is a unique looking creature, and aesthetically I love it too. I wish this guy made a comeback. I want to fight the Despaired Embodied again. I want to see this thing return, right? It never will, I know, but this is like the coolest thing to come from Devil May Cry 2. To add on top of that, the ending cutscene is actually really freaking cool. The way this boss gets killed. Yeah, this game has some really awesome aspects about it that really get buried underneath all of that nonsense that I talked over, right? Amongst all of Devil May Cry, this game deserves a remake, right? This game deserves a second chance at life. I think they could do it and they could make this something special. But we're not done with this game, right? First, the game challenges you to take on the secondary campaign. And secondly, you'll notice a couple new add-ons. First off, Bloody Palace is here. It may be a more basic version of what we know in modern day Devil May Cry, but this is the very first game with Bloody Palace. On top of that, this is the first game with mission selection. As soon as you beat the campaign, you can select any mission in that difficulty. That means once you go all the way up and beat Dante Must Die mode, you can do any mission on any difficulty based on your own selection. These are quality of life improvements I wish Devil May Cry 1 had, but 2 is where these staples start and they continue and get more robust as the series goes on. Whether you like Devil May Cry 2 or not, a lot of the series staples start here, and I do think that's something that needs to be appreciated. Now, in order to unlock the next difficulty, we do have to complete that second campaign first. Guess it's time to take on Lucia's campaign, right? Yeah, this side of the video is going to be a lot shorter because honestly, a lot of her levels are retreads of Dante's. On top of that, it's actually a shorter campaign. Moveset and ability-wise, she's actually very similar to Dante. She has double trigger, she has her combos, which are very similar to Dante's. She doesn't have guns, she has these throwing knives. The biggest difference truly is, 1, instead of guns, it's those throwing knives. And 2, she doesn't have margin form for a double trigger. Otherwise, everything else about her is basically an identical version with slightly different movements, you know? But gameplay is identical. Her story begins in the same place Dante does, in the museum, with the Sparta legacy being told to you to set the mood. The same events happen the exact same way, and now we're on to our first mission. The big difference is, we're starting from her house and we're heading up to the tower instead of the other way around like Dante. So yeah, her first mission's just Dante's mission, but backwards. The first segment's actually very similar to DMC1, where you're unable to proceed past this door because it's blocked by a red wall, and you need to collect so many red orbs to get past it. It's a good way to give you a tutorial on your movement. I found that funny that Dante didn't do that. Dante just gave you an open space and said, go have fun. And I do prefer that way of doing it than Lucia's way, but I get what they're doing here. Once we get to the tower, there's actually a mission where we climb up that tower to collect the next Arcana. We also have a boss right there as well. After that, the house explodes like it does in Dante's campaign. They all talk about the mission, and then they go off to do what they need to do. Lucia enters the catacombs, but you don't have to play through it. You just exit the other side to the next level. And it makes me wonder, does she know some kind of shortcut that Dante didn't? Because that would have been really nice to tell him. Everything moves forward in a very similar pace. The levels are slightly different, but very much the same, if that makes sense. We get to our favorite water tentacle boss. But afterwards, we have a secondary exit that Dante didn't get. Dante went the way with the motorcycle. Lucia just takes this other way and it leads her straight to the city. I don't know what Dante was doing. It took him way long to get back and forth. Lucia clearly knows these shortcuts. Why did they not communicate this beforehand? God damn it. In the city, we fight the demonized tanks. Awesome, but we don't have to fight the demon helicopter. Thank God. From here, we just move on to the oil rig. Look guys, it's like I said, her campaign's a lot shorter than Dante's, and sure, because I explained Dante's, there's less I have to go through here, but beyond that, it just moves at a faster click. There's way less to go through here. From here, Lucia catches up with Arius on the helicopter pad just like Dante does, but like, before Dante got there, they have a heart-to-heart, and she learns the truth that she was made by Arius. She's a failed version of his, like, bodyguard things he has. He then teleports Lucia to that butterfly chamber where you have to fight that goddamn butterfly boss all over again. I hate these long-distance bosses. After defeating the boss, we're teleported back out into a brand new setting that's Lucia only, and it's an underwater cave. That's right, we have some water-based movement we gotta deal with. I don't know if this is just me, or if other people have a similar opinion, or what's going on in the zeitgeist here, but I prefer the underwater controls to Devil May Cry 1 than the ones in Devil May Cry 2. If I had to choose it, it's gonna be 1. I'm so happy they drop underwater controls altogether from this point onwards, but between the two, one does it much better. That being said, there's more underwater segments in 2, and that kinda blows. In fact, we go through this whole dungeon, there's a lot of ups and downs, but at the end we do have an underwater boss we have to deal with. And you know what? When I said those faces was the toughest and most annoying boss that I hate the most, I think I lied. I think it's this giant fucking fish. It sucks on normal, it sucks on hard, and it sucks on must die mode. You can barely get a lock on because he goes invisible and you lose your ability to track him, except you can physically see him, but Lucia can't, so you lose your reticle, and that's annoying. On top of that, he fucking hits like a truck when he wants to. It's just so annoying to deal with, dude. I'm so happy we don't have to deal with him again after this game. After all this underwater platforming and puzzling and jumping and blah 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 blah, we meet up with Dante in the chamber, and then Lucia says, hey, I gotta go somewhere, and she goes off to fight Arius, just like in Dante's campaign. We then have a boss fight with Arius, and yes, it's just like the 2 we had with Dante. It is identical, and in the end, story-wise, she loses and she gets captured, and then the events happen where Dante shows up, Dante then fights him, the office explodes, and he rescues us, and now the ritual is starting, and the world is getting eclipsed by hell. This mission is executed just the way it is for Dante, and it ends with you fighting Phantom just like it does for Dante as well. The next mission is also that monster horde that you had to fight within that time limit, and then you're on to the final mission. And again, it's identical, except you don't fight Skeleton Bro. You can fight him in a secret room with Lucia, so that's kinda cool at least, right? You then fight the 3 faces, identical again, and then you're on to the next mission, where guess what? We skip that second fight with Arius that Dante had, and instead we go straight to, oh no, there's a giant hole in hell opening up, and Dante and her decide who's gonna go. Dante goes in, she stays behind. And here we are, the final mission, the final boss. We have a fully possessed Arius. I guess in some ways his goal did come true. This is a 2-phase fight. The first phase is actually funner than the second phase. Not by much though, depending on the difficulty, depends on how much Arius actually does here. On normal, he doesn't do much, and you can kinda just wail on him to get through. The second phase is more of an event space. You're stuck in a narrow down corridor, and he's a gigantic monster, and you just kinda work with that minimum space, dodging and hitting. Second one's more of a set piece. First one is supposed to be more of an actual fight. But we're at the end now, my friends. One of the big plot twists we learn here is that Dante's coin that keeps flipping actually had heads on both sides. That means no matter what, he always planned on doing the mission. What a weird character choice, and I'm so happy they dropped the coin later on, man. After completing both campaigns, you do get a final epilogue where you see Lucia inside the Devil May Cry office, and she hears the motorcycle pull up, and she's like, oh, Dante's back! And then it ends. That's it. Just to establish Dante made it home safe from hell, and yeah, that's the end of Devil May Cry 2. After completing both campaigns, you do unlock extra costumes, and you do unlock the next difficulty. And this cycle continues, so you beat it on normal, boom, you beat it on hard mode, boom, you beat it on must die mode, boom. So you have 3 full playthroughs of 2 separate campaigns to fully 100% this game. One of the unlocks that's really cool, once you beat the game on hard, you unlock Trish, and she has the exact same moveset as Dante from Devil May Cry 1. So if you're craving that better game design, you can, you just have to unlock Trish. She's using the Spada sword, it's super cool, I actually really love it, and overall it does make an improvement of the game. You can play both Dante or Lucia's campaign as Trish, so you're not locked down to anyone in particular. And one of the final unlocks is Dante's costume from Devil May Cry 1. So you do have some cool things to do, and again, just like future titles, you can revisit these missions anytime you want. Not that I would suggest to, because Devil May Cry 2 is kind of a bore, but again, this is where a lot of those quality of life changes comes from. A lot of what makes modern day Devil May Cry is actually a solid mixture of Devil May Cry 1 and 2. Some of the features like Bloody Palace, Dante's Rebellion, the ability to select your particular missions and revisit what you want to revisit, but also the theming and the pacing and the overall design aspect of Devil May Cry 1. You smash them together and you get Devil May Cry 3. with a little bit more zazz, you know. We'll get to 3 in the future, don't you worry. If I would try to make a succinct thought of what I believe Devil May Cry 2 is, I believe it is all style, no substance. And what I mean is the game has a fantastic first impression, the acrobatics are amazing, there's a style to it that only this game has, that the other games have their own style and a much preferred route, and I'm happy they went down those directions. But there's a more casual free flow that 2 has that they could have worked on and made it something special. Instead, they drop the ball and there's very little substance to the combat, to the actual execution of the game. It's sad when you have an actual game full of mechanics, and the best way to actually perform in this game is to ignore most of those mechanics. There are so many cool things that you don't need to do in this game to just do your regular playthroughs. It's sad that this game doesn't actually give you the need to perfect it. It's not challenging enough. It doesn't push you enough. But like I said, there's a lot of that style. So yes, all style, no substance. That is Devil May Cry 2. And with that, I can say I am done with this video. I want to thank everybody who's stuck on by. I want to thank everybody who's watched up till now. Do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe, all the fun bells and whistles. And from there, I want you all to have a fantastic night, and I'll see you next time.